I'm proud to serve my country and can't wait to kill some lousy Krauts, Nips, and whoever else is lousy. Standing tall, although he was not of noteworthy height, before the Selective Service System Draft Board, the gumshoe wanted the board's member to know that when duty called, as it was now loudly doing, he was all ears, he was all courage, he was all American. He was the real thing. He was... And the fact that he had failed to respond to the initial 3 letters the board had sent was clearly due to a misunderstanding. The weary retired major who chaired the board cut him short. Yes, Mr. DeWitt, you've shown us your good faith, and now it's time that you show your good faith and fighting spirit to the military. As soon as you pass your physical examination, you'll shortly be receiving orders as to where and when to report. And, by the way, the colonel smiled, I think we can forget the little mix-up that could have sent you to prison at Fort Leavenworth. DeWitt thanked him, saluted nervously and needlessly, and left the room without looking back. Oh, that was a close one, he told himself. I could have spent my life in a military shithole prison. Now all I gotta worry about is keeping my life until this shit war ends. What the private eye had told the board was true. Well, mostly. Well, a little. He did hate his country's enemies, and he had been prepared to fight the war, but looking on from the sidelines. After all, every fighting man, he reasoned, needed cheerleaders to boost his morale. The war had been raging for more than a year after Pearl Harbor, when Dick DeWitt, who had been a private investigator for nearly 20 years, received a notice from his draft board to report for a physical examination. This surprised him, though without wife or child he was in his early 40s, too old, he figured, to sling an M16 over his left shoulder and hunt for the nation's enemies. The unpleasant news demanded a shot of Jack Daniels, and then a second, and a third, after which he stumbled to bed and bid the problem good night until morning. 5 days intervened before his scheduled physical, and DeWitt spent much of his time and thought, detractors had long snickered that he had little of the latter, working on how he could beat the system. Appearance, he reckoned, counted, so he deprived himself of shaving, bathing, and changing underwear, arriving at the large physical examination center to the disgusted looks and disbelief of both fellow examinees and examiners. "Hey, pal, you know how bad you stink?" asked one young fellow, sporting a pronounced Brooklyn accent. DeWitt made strange noises in response, not because he failed to have understood the question, but due to his plan to display a speech impediment to the examiners. "Next!" yelled a tough-looking soldier, whose 3 stripes denoted the rank of sergeant. "Yeah, you, Stinky, haul your smelly ass over to table 3 and be quick about it." DeWitt dutifully limped over to table 3 and commenced to mumble incoherently. The doctor stared and then announced to the physician at the adjoining table, "I got a live one here, John. Do you want him?" John apparently did not, since he shook his head and clamped 2 fingers to his nostrils. "All right, mister." He leafed through a few sheets of typewritten pages. "All right, Mr. DeWitt, I'd like for you to tell me about any maladies, conditions, or problems you may have that would keep you from the company of Uncle Sam's forces." "Speak up, Mr. DeWitt. I can't understand what you're saying." After 30 seconds or so of DeWitt's mumbling, the doctor, annoyed, but finding it difficult to suppress a smile, ordered the private eye to write down what he was trying to convey. DeWitt considered shrugging his shoulders, as if to indicate that he was illiterate, but feared that the ploy might be pushing it too far. Instead, he scribbled a list of encumbrances that might have brought tears to the eyes of the compassionate, of whom he hoped the doctor sitting across the table was one. DeWitt first listed flat feet, and hoped that the bedroom slippers he was wearing would provide sufficient proof. Then there was his left knee, which he claimed he had severely injured when saving a young woman from the clutches of a sex fiend. DeWitt, in fact, had injured his knee, but not too severely, while jumping out of a second-story window to avoid the return.